All right, good evening. We're going to call this meeting to order for our regular October Board of Education meeting. I'm going to start with the resuscitation of our vision statement. Every school will be a thriving school that prepares every student to graduate from high school, college, career, and community ready. Tonight, we will start with a remembrance, and I'm going to have Board Member Muldrow please read.
We'd like to ask for a moment of silence this evening for our district to recognize the passing of Lee Vistra, who was an innovation and improvement supervisor in the Research and Assessment and Innovation Department. Lee was an essential inspirational figure in MMSD's community, beginning as a curious and energetic West High School student, and then as a highly regarded East High School teacher. An innovative leader in central office, Lee was a persistent, passionate educator and influenced many important programs for schools that continue to shape MMSD. On September 29th, 2024, Lee passed away from complications due to a rare form of genetic ALS and then a serious fall, despite living with an uncertain and sometimes terrifying trajectory. Lee dedicated her entire life to her students, colleagues, and community within Madison and its schools. She built bridges, believed in the power of teachers and students to change the world, and persevered in the face of adversity. As one of her close colleagues said, Lee never failed at anything because anything she did, good or bad, was an opportunity for reflection, collaboration, and growth. She always showed up and asked others to show up to make it important, to make an impact, to make things better, to reflect and be better. She will be missed. Lee's passing has taken a significant toll on so many in the MMSD community, and we remember them tonight. Please join me in participating in a moment of silence in honor of Lee Vistra. Thank you. Thank you, Board President Nichols.
Tonight for our public input, there were 3 written statements submitted for this meeting. One in support of literacy achievement and graduation readiness being part of the discussion on investments and impacts from college and career opportunities. One in support of asking questions and learning more about the impact of the facilities referendum, whether it passes or not. And one in support of the operating referendum, depending on how the district is planning to spend that money should the referendum pass. And for tonight, we have 4 individuals who have registered online. We'll start with them first, and then we'll move to our in-person speakers. Thank you, Jesse.
Thanks. Our first online speaker is Ray Mendez.
Thanks, Jesse. Good evening, all. Tonight, I'm addressing the $100 million in the referendum, $100 million in the referendum earmarked for operational expenses. As a lifelong supporter of public schools, I want to support this referendum. I know that the $100 million is critical for reducing class sizes, increasing mental health resources, expanding 4K access, and bolstering essential support for students in need. But will these funds be used efficiently and effectively to truly lift every child? Or will the money be wasted due to mismanagement and inefficiency? I know these are harsh words, but this is the time we have to focus before putting money into what we need to put it into. I can only vote yes if there's a commitment to integrity and accountability. We need board members, administrators, and parents who are open to ideas beyond their own circles, willing to act transparently, take responsibility, and avoid the virtue signaling and backroom deals. Many promises go unfulfilled, and everyone wonders, why is trust eroding? For example, Martha Serraro, has raised the issue of board meeting accessibility for wheelchair-using speakers a lot for many years. Despite years of sympathy, no action has been taken. And this is a small example, but you see how it works. Who will take responsibility to resolve something as straightforward as making sure the stage she speaks from works for her? We don't need large committees arguing about equity and fighting for power to make this happen. I need genuine assurances that you are committed to changing this culture through exemplary behavior. Without this, voting yes feels like throwing gasoline on a fire to me. I will support, however, a yes vote if you commit to taking visible, responsible action and follow up by communicating what you're doing every month. If not, it might be the time for others to lead. Trust must be earned. I invite Nichelle, board members, the other board members, and Dr. Gothard to meet virtually with me and 3 community leaders for a brief 20-minute discussion before the election, not after, before the election. You all have my contact info. Please reach out, and thank you. Jesse, thanks for helping us coordinate. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Our next speaker is Erica Bach.
Hello, board members. I'd like to say welcome to Dr. G. I was in Minneapolis and St. Paul at the time of your tenure there. Grateful to welcome you aboard. And I would also like to say a very fond and loving farewell to Lee Viestra as well for her incredible commitment to the district. So I write to you all as a graduate of MMSD who has 4 young people under your tutelage and care. As students in the district, they are not the students I am most concerned about as you take up budget measures and the referendum. It is the students who fall within our strategically excluded lower income households that are primarily Black and Brown students. And for that reason, I need to use the privilege that's been extended to me racially and socioeconomically to lift up something that occurred last week that I think is extremely important and needs to be part of your budget considerations. So before I ask this request of you all, I do want to thank you for your energy and your time. You're going to have many difficult decisions to be made when we talk not only about $100 million, but about accessibility, equity, diversity, and inclusion. So I'd like to lift up the payment that was made last week by the Free Schools Meals Coalition, members of which include Freedom Inc., Families for Justice, the Madison Area Democratic Socialist Society of America, and several others, including the Educational Justice Coalition. Education Justice Coalition, many of you are familiar with, as well as Freedom Inc., believing that equity in the schools is not only the foundation for a thriving community, but it is necessary in order for all students to be a part of the vision. When MMSD talks about the graduate vision, things like wellness, self-knowledge, growth mindset, confidence, these are all things that come with being well-nourished, well-fed, and fully resourced. When we talk about historically marginalized or underrepresented students, we're actually talking about people and young people who have been strategically excluded in this district and across the country and the world. So please keeping in mind that a good, healthy meal without the fear of retribution for not being able to pay your school meal bill is going to be part of the mastery of content that you're seeking from your student. Goals that are listed very plainly for MMSD and all of us to see include that every child be on track for graduation, having a reading proficiency level, having 4-year completion rate. These are all things that are near impossible without a good, healthy meal. So I'm going to ask you all in the spirit of St. Paul Schools and Philando Castile, may he rest in honor, that the school debt be paid and that you include this important measure in your budget. Thank you.
Thank you. Our third speaker is Martha Saravo.
Hi, board members. Martha Strava here with Mantle Mamas and Disability Advocates is where I'm usually coming from. Tonight, it's just wonderful to see you all, and that you guys are at the helm, and that we have Dr. Gothard leading the charge now. I'm wanted to just come and just say how optimistic I am about going forward. Our district really needs leaders that she'll follow through and come with a lot of good intentions and are willing to come to the table, but also willing to have the hard discussions that we all need to have as well. Ray, who was just speaking, I was just talking with him earlier because he was referencing access and some things that I constantly just bring up when I come down there. I found myself just exhausted today as I can't actually get to board meetings unless I coordinate with someone to get me in the right door. And then once I get in there, I can only have a certain place to sit. And then going up to the podium, it's very different and it gets very frustrating to continue to talk about it. But I'm also on the ground with families every single day, working with people in a variety of really hard situations and being able to work with people who are in our administrative positions and getting things done, and finding meaning for students that are going through challenges. I find it really fulfilling, and I like it when we can get to an outcome that's ultimately student-centered. And that's where we should be. And so when I'm looking at this budget and everything that we want for Madison, not only do I hope that Madison backs everybody that is here tonight and every school meeting with everyone at the table, but I hope that there's also something that they get to see after the fact of what happens beyond the boardroom, what happens beyond these meetings. Because not only is Madison asking for the district itself, but Wisconsin needs to demand more from the top down. And I would love it if we saw more in that direction as well. So we're not always it is hard to come across elections and try to make sure that we're making big ass and that we can feel really good about it. We need more to come down from the top down. And I hope that going forward, we have a collective way to have Madison know that all of its members there are going beyond these meetings and doing more. So thank you very much, everybody. Have a good night.
That's not true.
Thank you. Our final online speaker is Elizabeth Bynum Sorrell.
Hi there. Thank you so much. My name is Elizabeth Bynum Sorrell. I'd like to thank all of the board members for their time this evening and for their willingness to listen. And Jesse, thank you for the coordination. I'm a Madison resident, and I'm also a member of the Madison Area Democratic Socialists of America, which is part of a coalition of local groups, including Freedom Inc., the Wisconsin Poor People's Campaign, Rooted, and other groups running the Free School Meals for Madison campaign. We believe that every child should be guaranteed access to free and healthy breakfast and lunch in the Madison Metropolitan School District. Erica, who was speaking just a moment ago, did a great job, I think, summarizing some of what I'd like to share today. But for the record, I'd like to echo some of those comments and reiterate some of those key points and why we're here today. So our coalition campaign has been fundraising to pay down existing school meal debt in the district and is currently calling on the school board to use funds from the November 2024 school operating referendum, should it pass, to transition to a free school lunch model by the 2026-2027 school year. But regardless of next week's referendum, we know that it is imperative that we continue to work together to move towards a school nutrition model that makes high quality food available universally for our students. As you all are probably even more keenly aware than I am, as of October 3rd of this year, students in the district collectively owe over $190,000 in school meal debt. We know students are missing meals because they can't afford to eat, and that this debt impacts every student because that uncollectible debt eventually gets settled by the district, reducing funding available to feed all of our students the healthy, quality food that they deserve. I hope that we can find ways to make this a priority in the next budget process, regardless of what the vote count looks like next week. We look forward to continuing conversations to make sure we're able to achieve a model of feeding students in our community that guarantees their right to a safe and healthy space to learn and grow, which matters for our families in our district, but for all of us. Thank you so much for your time.
Thank you to our online speakers. We're now going to move to our in-person public comment. Looks like we have 16 speakers tonight. So just as a reminder for our speakers, before you come up, you'll have 3 minutes. There's a clock up here that will give you the time as it's running. And then also on the podium, there is a little black box. When you have 30 seconds remaining, it will turn yellow. And then when you're at the 3 minutes, you'll see a red light. If you still need to finish a thought, feel free to take a few extra moments to finish your thought. And also try to be mindful of your time, just so that other speakers have their ability to have our full attention as well. All right, so we're going to start with, and if I mispronounce your name, my apologies. Just please come up and correct me and let the board know the right way to say your name. I think it is Ayelet Blum or Bloom. I apologize. And then following will be Cruz Ambrose Stowe or Stoff or Stowe. I don't. So Cruz following Ayelet.
Good evening, board members. My name is Ayelet Bloom, and I am a sophomore from West High School representing HOSA Future Health Professionals. We would like to discuss the importance of expansion in the career and technical education classes and career and technical student organizations like HOSA across the district. The strategic framework states that the first goal for all MMSD schools is to make sure, quote, every child is on track to graduate ready for college, career, and community. Part of that goal is to track the post-secondary enrollment rate of MMSD graduates. However, college is not the path for everyone. I've spoken to multiple successful adults who pursued mechanical engineering paths without a college diploma, one of whom successfully started his business in sophomore year of high school. As an MMSD graduate, he feels that the district didn't adequately support his path post-school and actively put him down. He was told by teachers that he, quote, wouldn't get far in life. Currently, he works in a complex and highly skilled job in his own company, where he programs machinery to build materials for space travel, working alongside engineers with PhDs and improving their designs as they work in the real world. I've also talked with the HOSA advisor and CTE teacher at West as she tries to expand her curriculums and classes offered. She spoke of the importance of jobs like nurses, electricians, and building inspectors, and how they play an integral role in our community and daily lives. She's working alongside with the district CTE department to expand her program. However, she highlighted several concerns. She stated that the CTE programs simply don't have enough resources, time, permanence, space, or money to grow and prepare students for post-high school plans throughout their entire high school career. Our high schools must support them in their journey equally to those who pursue college for MMSD to truly meet their goal of every child being on track to graduate ready for college, career, and community. As the referenda decisions approach, we urge you to allocate part of the money from the operational referendum towards CTE programs and teachers if it passes. The more diversity amongst our teachers and courses offered, the more personal and beneficial teaching can be. We believe that investing in CTE is not only investing in MMSD students, but also investing in the improvement of our Madison community as a whole. We also ask that these voices and perspectives be taken into account when implementing the 5 major levels of change outlined in the strategic framework. Part of your 4th change is to plan for the future. And as I said before, our future depends on the empowerment and support of students who work during and out of school. Thank you for your time.
All right, as Cruz, you're coming up. Next up will be, I think it's Vishay Bloom or Yishay. I'm sorry if I didn't read it correctly.
Hello, members of the school board. My name is Cruz Ambrose Stowe. I'm a junior at Malcolm Shabazz City High School. I want to start this speech off with a statistic. 51.6% of high schoolers in Madison experience anxiety. 1 in every 3 high school students in Madison experience unrelenting depression for more than 2 weeks in a row. And 1 in 5 have reported they have done non-suicidal self-harm. This is even more prevalent when comparing genders. 66.8% of female students said they have depression and or anxiety, while only 13.7% of male students say they experience depression and or anxiety. This is most likely based on unachievable beauty standards among women, and social media plays a huge role in our student mental health. But I would like to raise another point. Even though men are in the minority of this statistic, as a cis white male dealing with depression and anxiety, I feel that there is a huge push by society that it is not okay to share our feelings. And if we do share our feelings, we are seen as weak. This is why we need to spend more money on student mental health services. Currently, of last year, we spent around $6 million on training and school psychologists. Although this is a lot of money, if we look back at my first statistic, that statistic was from this year, 2024. If that doesn't change your mind about changing or heightening the amount of money we spend on student mental health services, I urge you to start campaigns to let students know that they're beautiful in their own ways and that it is okay to reach out for help. And if you don't do that, I hope that you take this home and discuss it in your households. Thank you.
Okay. I don't know if this is a V or a Y. Either Vishay or Yishay. And then following will be Stephanie Gutierrez and Bricia Cosme.
Good evening, board members. My name is Yishai Bloom. I'm a senior at West, and I represent West Environmental Club as one of its 4 captains. My co-captains are Isaac Evans, Avi Mack, and Molly Anderson. The main grievance that we would like to bring to your attention is the district's recycling and waste disposal policy. Board Policy 4600, the Student Bill of Rights, subsection 2B, states that, quote, students shall have the right to a clean environment, end quote. We believe that this includes the responsibility of the schools to dispose of recyclable materials and waste properly, separating the 2 categories in the interest of sustainability. However, at West, we have observed that the standard is not being consistently met. In the spring of last year, we conducted a sampling survey that found that many classrooms either do not have adequate separation of recycling bins and trash due to mislabeling and or use of trash bags in both, or they lack recycling bins completely. Majority of surveyed teachers reported interest in improving recycling in their classrooms, believing that it is not well executed school-wide. Furthermore, our conversations with janitorial staff at the school yielded their frustration over the same topic, reporting that recycling bins often had trash items in them, leading them to have to dispose of them with the trash rather than recycle them. Obviously, we feel that this is a major indictment of the district's goal of sustainability in its schools, which could be remedied with a policy change. Nowhere in the district policies guide, nor the employee handbook, did we find any policy that specifically addresses school waste disposal policies. The Environmental Club at West proposes the following. Implement a policy change that mandates that all classrooms have recycling bins, that those bins be appropriately labeled, and that district schools consistently separate recyclable items from typical waste in the interest of sustainability. Additionally, we suggest an awareness campaign for district schools to remind students to properly separate recyclables and trash items, as students like us need to be part of the solution. Student leaders such as myself and my co-captains are more than willing to work with you district policymakers to achieve this goal and see its implementation in our schools. Pursuant to this goal, the Environmental Club at West, in partnership with our chapter of NHS, the National Honor Society, will be undertaking an initiative to continue surveying the school's recycling efficiency with the help of student volunteers. At the end of the winter, we will consolidate our findings into reports that will provide further evidence in the form of efficiency statistics, supporting the need for better recycling and waste disposal policies. This concludes my time. Thank you very much for your listening. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll have Stephanie Gutierrez and Bricia Cosme, and sorry if I mispronounced, come up, and then following will be Tim Lehman.
Good evening, board members. My name is Stephanie Gutierrez Centeno.
And I'm Bricia Cosme Martinez. We are juniors at Madison East High School representing the club. We believe that the food at our schools should be more culturally diverse for students that come from different backgrounds and religions. At our school East, we don't have diversity in the foods that are provided to us.
We have seen many students picking at certain foods due to the fact they aren't able to eat the food provided. And we want to change so that every student can feel included. What we want to know is how can the district include diverse foods for everyone so that every student feels included? Thank you.
Thank you. Tim Lehman, and then following will be Megan Mullen, I believe this is. Tim? Okay. How about Megan? Megan Mullen? And then after Megan will be Desiree Anderson.
Hello, everybody. My name is Megan Mullen, and I'm currently a third grade teacher at Southside Elementary. This is my 4th year teaching in the Frank Alice Southside community, but my 9th year working in this community as I began my career at Alice through MSCR. That said, I have a lot of experience working with this community. I hold it very near to my heart, and I am very protective over it. At Southside, we keep students at the center of everything that we do, and I'd never accept anything less. In my time as a practicum student, student teacher, and now teacher in the school, I have thoroughly enjoyed my time working under Candace Terrell's leadership. She has held high expectations for me as a teacher and has been a knowledgeable resource and thought partner for me in my growth as an educator. This leadership style has resulted in immense student growth since she began leading in 2020. This growth continues to motivate both teachers and students to work hard together. Entering year 4 as a teacher, I felt I finally found my groove and confidence in myself as an educator, and I was more than excited to continue this work we have been doing at Southside under Candace Terrell and Annabelle Torres' leadership. Unfortunately, that excitement was short-lived as our principals were taken away from us just 1 month into the school year. Since our principals have been removed, our school community is struggling. The structure provided by Candace and Annabelle now feels non-existent, which has led to a large increase in student behavior needs. Our support team and teachers are doing the best that we can to manage, but it's growing more challenging each day as the people we would turn to for problem solving and structure were taken away from us. I am hurting because the narrative that currently exists about my work environment does not reflect my experience in my time here, and it continues to negatively impact myself, my colleagues, and most importantly, our students. In the time since our leadership has been removed, I feel I can barely stay afloat due to the high amounts of stress my colleagues and I are feeling amidst all of the uncertainty. I thrived off the system, structure, and support my leaders provided. Without them, it feels like our school is spiraling out of control. I want and need our leaders back. Thank you.
Thank you. As Desiree comes up, following will be Darlene.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Desiree Anderson, and I'm a 4K teacher at Southside. Last year, I relocated from Virginia, where I taught in Title I schools for 28 years. My move was contingent on finding a school where I would be able to continue to bridge the gap in education for our Black and Brown students. After interviewing with Principal Terrell, I knew I found my new school home. Her enthusiasm was infectious. Her goal for every child to be seen as individuals while considering their life experiences, which often included trauma, was refreshing. During my first year, I was not disappointed. I have witnessed firsthand how she built relationships with students at Southside and how much she cared for their overall well-being. Throughout my career, I've worked with several principals, and this is the first one who is totally motivated to serve students, to give them a safe space and feel valued, heard, and cared for. So I cannot explain how I felt sitting in one of these very seats last year, listening to complaints and accusations brought to the board by representatives of a group of 24, the majority of whom didn't even work at Southside at the time. My experience with Principal Terrell has been nothing but positive. She has high expectations for her students and the staff. She does not just talk about equity, she puts it into action for the students and staff, encouraging and leading authentic conversations with both. Together, Principal Terrell and AP Torres have been creating a safe learning space where educators and students can be free to express themselves and to cultivate meaningful relationships. I have to wonder if the people that brought the complaint are being fueled by personal reasons. It can be difficult as educators to accept change, and even more difficult to be asked to examine your own motivations and the treatment of your students. This group has caused more damage to our students than that were highlighted in their complaint. Their safe space is no longer safe. Since administration was abruptly removed from our school, many of our students have been displaying anger and asking questions that we can't answer. Like, why did Ms. T get fired? And is she coming back? There has also been an uptick in negative behaviors. This school year, I have witnessed one of those very concerned complainants deny access to spaces and materials to one of our Black and brown students, and then turned around and made it accessible to a white student. Who is going to address the fallout? Who is going to help the children through their feelings of abandonment since October 7th? Not them. It will be up to us to navigate this minefield. Decisions are made off-site, and it is the committed teachers on-site that are forced to deal with the aftershocks. Lastly, I would like to just clear something up, that the group of 24 does not represent Southside staff, and they do not speak for us, nor do they in any way reflect our feelings or wishes.
Thank you. Darlene, you can come on up, and then Makia? And then I think after Darlene, sorry, it'll be, I think it's Makia Price. All right, thank you.
My name is Darlene Combo, and I serve multiple roles in MMSD. Professionally, half of the time, I'm the program support teacher at Southside Elementary, formerly Frank Gallis. The other half of my allocation is as a new teacher mentor throughout the district. This part of my job means that I get to interact with a wide variety of staff at New Educator Orientation in August of every year, and again throughout the year. As the school year progresses, when I speak with educators who are new to Madison but not new to the field of education, they give me one key point of feedback. In the beginning of the year, Madison sells itself as being ahead of the curve in terms of racial equity work. As time goes on, they quickly realize that the actions throughout our district do not match our words. The treatment of Southside Elementary over the last 5 months is evidence that this sentiment is true. The public smear campaign of Black women in leadership is a racial macroaggression. The claims that test scores have been fabricated are racially coded. The quiet part that's not being said out loud is that poor Black and brown kids are not capable of making notable academic progress. What's also not being said is that a building full of Black and brown educators are not capable of supporting staff in a way that leads to better outcomes for students. While people are allowed to have their individual opinions and no school is perfect, the way these voices have been elevated with no repercussion has been damaging to all of the students and staff who are currently committed to Southside. I'm from Madison. I attended Schenck, then Whitehorse, then La Follette. I've seen this district through many incidents and situations of upheaval. I don't think I've ever been more disappointed in the larger MMSD community. Those of us here have tried to share our perspective, and no one cares. A small handful of central office staff have truly shown up for us without being asked. I think perhaps one of you has come to visit our school since our world was blown apart.
We've been left alone to fend for ourselves. It is no wonder that we struggle to hire and retain educators of color when we build a community where Black and brown staff want to come to work, and then we pull away their leadership.
Hello, my name is Makia Price. I am speaking on behalf of Candace Terrell as a previous parent when she was my kid's principal. Just working with Ms. Terrell, like she had high expectations for my kids. She was always open for communication, willingness to help. Also as a staff in school to go be a principal. This speaks so much to me, like, who next? I've seen her literally become a mentor, teaching other principals how to be principals, to being a monster on TV. Like, it makes us feel as Black educators, if we hold teachers accountable, what we gonna look like? What's like, why go to school and spend thousands of dollars in debt when you hold white teachers accountable, your whole job and career is just torn to pieces. That's it.
Thank you. Next up, we have Aiden Browning, and then following Aiden will be Lori Lopez.
Hello. I'd like to thank everybody for coming around to listen to everybody's issues and hear everyone out in what they're dealing with at their school. I'd like to introduce myself first through my personality and as a student. My name is Aiden Browning. I'm a sophomore at La Follette High School, and I've been playing piano for 7 years, and I'm very into music. Some of these issues at my school have been diverting me from pursuing my ability to do these things. And one of that would be the uncomfortable topic of smoking on buses and in bathrooms and generally around my schools and MMSD's schools. And I bring up why this is an uncomfortable topic because it brings me shame that my fellow students have the ability to engage in such actions. Every day for the past 5 years, I've not been able to ride the bus without encountering smoking or go to the bathroom without encountering smoking. My friends and family agree this issue has gone long enough and should be exterminated. But in the beginning of this month, I had the bliss experience to break this curse. At the end of the day, at the end of one of my school days, I made a beeline to the bus, as I usually do every day. But this time was different. A Metro Transit supervisor car was in front of my bus and on my bus. He made a statement regarding that if anybody was caught smoking on the bus, he would call the police and kick everyone off the bus that was engaging in this action. I found it uplifting to hear that this action was made. Throughout this, of course, they proceeded to engage in these actions and were stopped and kicked off the bus by police. Everybody clapped as we finally got to experience a bus ride without smoking. But this experience reflects that the ending of this issue can have can up the morale of all students. To quote unquote solve this issue, we can repeat this process over and over again. We can divert these actions away from buses. But this doesn't solve the issue, it moves the issue. Solving the issue will require stricter rules in school, regular bag searches with reasonable suspicion, and smoke detectors can be major steps. These things may be already implemented, but surely not enough. Increasing security around areas can super boost this process, but I am aware that this requires a larger budget and more money in general. In general, I just want to go through my school life and have my peers to go through their school life without being exposed to smoking and the bad decisions made by my schoolmates. Thank you for your time, and I surely hope to see improvement on these ongoing issues. Thank you.
Thank you. Lori Lopez, as you're coming up, then we'll have Ascendra Brown following.
Good evening, board. My name is Lori Lopez, and I'm the proud principal at Sandburg Elementary School. As many of us know, there is a lot of research that supports differences in leadership experiences between white leaders and leaders of color. I'm here tonight to lift that in my own experience as a leader in MMSD, I have seen these research trends play out in our schools. These trends include being held to different or higher standards, as well as differences in the level of support offered to my colleagues of color. We need better working conditions and supports for our current and future leaders in MMSD. We must disrupt the current research narrative that leaders of color must work 10 times harder to be viewed as successful as white leaders. Being a school leader is very complex. And if we make it 10 times harder, as the research suggests, it will then become impossible. At the same time, research tells us that there are significant positive effects in having leaders of color in our schools. Seeing leaders who look like our students offers them the opportunity to believe that they too could step into leadership roles in their futures. I have seen firsthand the joy, the connection, the belonging on our students' faces when they meet a leader that looks like them. Despite our best efforts to establish equitable working conditions for leaders in our district, there is a clear discrepancy between my personal experience as a white leader and the experiences I have witnessed when I've led beside a leader of color in MMSD. While I know this research is not new information to the school board, my hope is that by resurfacing it tonight, we will keep it at the forefront of our minds as we establish policies, systems, and most importantly, decisions in our district. Thank you so much.
As Ascendra comes up, then next we'll have Taretha Morris.
Hello, school board members. My name is Ascendra Brown, and I'm the Community Schools Coordinator at Southside Elementary. I've had the privilege of serving the Madison community for the past 6 years, including overseeing youth programming within MMSD. Since my transition to Southside Community School last spring, I feel a deep responsibility to share a crucial perspective that counters the narrative portrayed by recent media coverage and open records documents. Hear me when I say that there is nothing wrong with the culture and climate at Southside Community School. Under the leadership of Principal Candace Terrell and Assistant Principal Annabelle Torres, I've witnessed firsthand the profound and positive impact that they have had on our students, staff, and the wider community. Their unwavering commitment to academic excellence, emotional well-being, and inclusive practices has created a safe and nurturing atmosphere for us all. Principal Terrell and Assistant Principal Torres have worked tirelessly to cultivate strong relationships with families, community organizations, and local stakeholders. Families have shared numerous testimonies about the positive experiences their children have had under their guidance. Our data reflects an environment that encourages creativity, curiosity, and respect for others, along with a sense of community fostered by our leadership team. The decision to place both Principal Terrell and Assistant Principal Torres on administrative leave has sent ripples of confusion and distress throughout our school community. Their absence has disrupted the rhythm of our school and left a void that cannot be filled. Students are grappling with uncertainty, and staff are without the guiding hands that have fostered creativity and collaboration. Students and staff feel seen, heard, and valued under their care. They have implemented programs designed to promote social emotional learning, ensuring that our students are not only academically prepared, but also equipped with the skills to navigate life's challenges. This holistic approach to education is what sets Southside apart and makes it a model for others to emulate. The vibrant community we've built is now overshadowed by anxiety and fear, and we cannot stand by while this crucial support is taken away. I implore you to reconsider the decision regarding Principal Terrell and Assistant Principal Torres. They deserve the opportunity to address any concerns directly and continue their invaluable work. The love and respect our school community has for them is overwhelming, and we stand united in our desire to see them reinstated. While it is essential to acknowledge that every leader faces challenges, it is equally important to approach these situations with understanding and support. Principal Terrell and Assistant Principal Torres have shown resilience and adaptability, implementing effective strategies to address concerns and improve our school. Investing in our leaders is investing in our students' futures. Let us prioritize our students' and staff's well-being and restore the leadership that has had such a positive impact on our school. I urge you to act swiftly in bringing Principal Terrell and Assistant Principal Torres back to our school family. Thank you for your attention to this matter. I trust that you will consider the importance of supporting our principals and the lasting positive impact it will have on our entire school community. Thank you.
Hello, my name is Taretha Morris, and I am a Reach teacher at Southside. I come to you to speak about the ways in which my last few months at Southside has been affected. While I've been at Southside for 4 years, I've been in this district for 10. And I'm here to speak how these last few months have been a whirlwind for a current staff member. Imagine coming to an event where you are proud to be receiving recognition for the great work your students are doing, only to be blindsided by a public article and board meeting where you hear about a place that you go to every day being portrayed in a way that you have never experienced. And you are not ever given the opportunity to voice your opinion and your feelings that have been going on in this experience. After returning from the board meeting, there was a noticeable shift in our school climate due to staff not knowing of these complaints that were released to the public, not agreeing with the complaints, and now being extremely cautious of who to trust in our space, because there was a feeling of not knowing if your words were being misused and if you were being spoken for when you didn't ask anyone to speak for you. As I said, being previously in this community that I came to every day, it was a shock to hear. I must take you back to the beginning in order to show you the true effects. In the start of every year, our school community starts with restorative justice circles to entrench ourselves as staff in the high expectations that we have for our students and our community. We use the circles to build community as well as have a firsthand experience developing our own selves, just as we ask of our students. We start each year with purposeful intentions to build community among us as staff, as well as finding joy and building relationships so that we as staff can come together and can provide all that we need for our students. But after reading public articles and being present at a board meeting, there was a strong need for the voices of those impacted, but not in agreement, to be heard in the same way in which the complaints were. But that time never came. So we were left not knowing what steps to take, and many staff members finished out the school year blindsided by all of this and were left with feelings of being spoken for and not ever being spoken to. And now we move to this year, where we start off the year with restorative justice circles and a clean slate to build community, relationships, and a foundation so that we can come to work every day as our best selves and be all of what our students need. And this year started off with joy, excitement, and passion to continue to strive for the greatness we have seen our students to continue to grow and show. But then, out of nowhere, we as staff were blindsided again with our administrators, Candace Terrell and Annabelle Torres, being removed from our building with no communication or information to our staff. And following this decision, the effects on our school community has been enormous. This decision to remove our administrators has affected our students, and staff are struggling daily with uncertainty and anxiety around not having their support and systems of our administrators, who are a huge visible part of our community, but are still expected to come to work daily and be our best selves when we are struggling and being ignored because we have not once received the additional support needed to process the traumas we are experiencing right now. While there were circles conducted through the union for those who had the complaints, they were not provided to us who did not. And when these accusations came about. and still have not been created. But our voice was not only silenced there, but also in the public as as some community members and teachers reached out to the newspaper and we were never acknowledged. Our voices were still excluded. Not once since all this has begun has additional support has been provided for us and our students who are struggling and showing and increased behaviors and the burned out feelings of our educators on a daily basis. We are at a school of predominantly Black and brown students and educators, but our voices are being silenced and not taken into account. Instead, we are being spoken for and not included in the decision.
Thanks. All right, next we'll have Lauren Morris and then following Rachel Holloway.
Good evening, all, and thanks for this time. I'm Lauren Morris, a staff member at Southside Elementary. I'm a 20-year plus educator who has been at MMSD for over 12 years as a classroom teacher, central office employee that has given me a unique vantage point into the schools in our district. Last year, I was excited to be back in a school setting to use my experience in a noteworthy school so desperately desired on the south side of Madison for students who are more than deserving of the best MMSD has to offer. Over the last few months, there have been tons of stories told and printed, accusations made, and misrepresentation shared. But that is not the narrative of Southside that most people experience. I sat in this auditorium and listened to people vilify our community and the amazing work going on there after celebrating the very same school in the other room. It was tough to hear strangers speak on a school community that, although building and imperfect, I was and still am proud of. I read the articles criticizing things that are out of our control, like lot size and placement, or situations that many schools are experiencing. In trying to tear down two people, tons of staff and students have been completely thrown under the bus. Growth and change are hard, but I'm just trying to understand the end game. People are using our Black and brown students and all of the inflammatory buzzwords to drive their own agendas. Do people hope to return to Southside next year and undo all of the amazing strides gained in this recent time? Are we really keeping students' interest at the center of this? I'm standing here advocating for the collateral damage done over the course of this process and for the staff and families who couldn't be here to speak on their behalf. There is no one in opposition to the due diligence and investigating that needs to be done, but trust has been all but decimated since May of last year, with the wound ripped open again earlier this month. Undoing any chance for a fresh start in the new school year. Instead of celebrating a tough yet rewarding year at the end of the year at the new building, people were spending time questioning their own experience, their own perceptions of the school community that they had to hear from peers addressed as toxic and dangerous. Witnessing staff question their own judgment on if they should move to another school that was closer to home, or if they had been complicit. They felt supported, but had to, because of how they felt supported and accomplished and content in the environment that was now being described as terrible in comments and articles and written complaints. It has staff having to endure stories of people projecting their shortcomings on others, telling tainted stories, and the limited knowledge and outright telling of mistruths. People don't want to hear the increase of attendance, academic growth, improved assessment scores, the patience and love and accountability important to students that has turned around behavior, the focus on mentorship, restorative practice, and advocacy. They don't want to hear about the coaching and capacity building, the encouragement, the radical candor that addresses misses, and helping people to find their best fits. They don't want to hear about the way we are standing in the gaps to fill in for the pandemic using small group work. They don't want to hear about the staff and visitors and volunteers that love to be in our building and acknowledge the joy that they see students rushing into the space. About the student-centered discussions. Our voices have been systematically excluded. And since the removal of our leaderships, our students and staff have been struggling. Candace and Annabelle were integral parts of the school community coverage, support, coaching, and behavior. And we're feeling this strongly. We have an amazing staff at Southside who work hard and believe in the vision. The students miss them immensely. And we don't want to ignore the hard work, dedication, and self-reflection that's taken by the staff who came here specifically for the work, because they're dedicated to the joyful learning and high expectations for success.
because at Southside, excellence is our superpower. Thank you.
Rachel Holloway, and then Tasha Larson.
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. I just wanted to address the board. I have comments related to the budgets you're considering and the facilities referendum on the ballot, related to how MMSD has communicated key information to the voters. There's a lot of great information and presentations out there right now about how the need is driven by our aging buildings and the stingy state funding. So I totally get that. But I just want to say that this is still a very difficult decision for me because it's such a large dollar amount. I'm looking at almost 20% increase in property taxes in 4 years, right? And that's a housing cost issue. And I don't think our district should rely on state funding to increase in the future. So when I think of that, as a voter, I'm looking for clear information, not just now, but in general, right, on the justification for the amount and why it needs to happen now versus later. I look for what are your alternatives that you've considered? Specifically, what are those specific trade-offs? If we're asked to approve this dollar amount, what if we don't approve it? What then? I look for a third, how MMSD is trying to minimize costs for its aging facilities. Like, what else can we do? For me, that looks like, what are the other funding sources we could be using for this, right, in lieu of referendum or with it? What are the alternate project budgets? Like some that might have everything on our wish list. I know Madison, we've got a lot of things, right? Including renewable energy, which is what I've seen in your materials, a huge amount of the project costs. But are there other alternate budgets that don't have all the things that we want on our wish list, but that might be pared down? And then also answering the big questions that have been posed in the news and in public. I hadn't necessarily seen answers like why not close or consolidate some schools. I know that's a loaded question, but like I hadn't seen that answered on the nose by the district. And I thought that's so strange when that's been asked by very prominent people in the community. It's in the paper and I didn't see the district go, here's why that's difficult or why we're not doing that, or that we thought about it and here's what we think. And if schools aren't being used to their fullest capacity, I was looking for information on that going, well, why aren't we considering that, right? I think that information should be out there to help us make these decisions. So I just came to an information session tonight that was very helpful. It was the first one I could make. But I know there's so much the district is considering in your budgets and so much the community expects of you. But I just want to say that putting this type of information just clear out there proactively would really help voters make an informed decision. And it also shows us that the district really takes these concerns seriously, not just, hoping the referendum. I know we need referendums, but it's a big, big ask. And I expect to see justification of why it's really necessary and what else can we be doing if this doesn't fly. So I appreciate your time. Thank you.
Hi, I'm Tasha Larson, and I've been the school psychologist at Southside, formerly Frank Alice, for the past 3 years. My practicum was also at Frank Alice the same year that Candace became principal, so I got to know her and many of the students a bit before I actually got hired on full-time. I want to start by saying that I do not believe that neither Candace nor Annabelle deserve to be removed from their positions at Southside. However, at first, I wasn't sure how I felt about Candace. She was intimidating and closed off. I was challenged a lot. It felt like every mistake I made was magnified. The way I said something was misunderstood, or the flow of my meeting agendas wasn't efficient. My boundaries with students weren't firm enough. My first year, I felt that she gave me an unfair evaluation, which did not take into account the full scope of my job. I was not the only one who felt this way. I know this because multiple staff gossiped about it. However, this is not the way I do things, and I was determined to prove to Candace and to myself that I could do this job. I wrote her a letter outlining my strengths and then got to work on the things she said I needed to work on. I realized that just because I felt that my strengths were not fairly considered did not mean that her evaluation of my weaknesses was wrong. I had a lot to learn, especially when it came to working with our Black and Brown students and their families, and I was not going to let my ego get in the way of my personal and professional growth. I also took an empathic perspective and realized that not only was this her first year ever serving as a Black female principal in a school staffed with majority white staff members, but it was also the year that the world faced a global pandemic that shut everything down decreased financial and job security, increased the cost of living, increased depression and anxiety rates, and killed millions of people worldwide. The entire world was struggling, and I could not even imagine trying to run a school at a time like that. Over the past 3 years, I have grown a ton from working in this position at this school. I am way more understanding of different backgrounds and lifestyles. I'm more aware of the way I communicate and the words I use to convey a message. I respect people's boundaries, and I'm working on being more firm with my own. I owe a lot of that growth to Candace. I have come to her on multiple occasions when faced with a difficult interaction with another staff member or parent, and she has always offered a listening ear and solid advice. I don't agree with everything she does, but I have come to appreciate her blunt feedback and high expectations of her staff and students because it makes us better people. She holds us accountable. And this is a hard thing for a lot of people because it means putting aside your ego and actually admitting when you're wrong. She is no different. In fact, I've witnessed tender moments in which Candace spoke out to staff about her challenges with vulnerability and trusting others, admitting that this has led to difficulties opening up and engaging with staff in a positive way at times. This kind of vulnerability takes a lot of strength and commitment to one's school community, and I respected her a great deal more after she did that. Both of these women have put a lot of passion and hard work into their roles, and that should be obvious from our school's improved academic outcomes. Yes, our behavior responses and interventions need to be improved. We need more support and resources, and we have advocated for that many times. We are still working on our systems as well as our communication with families, and I understand the frustration, but our school is a community, and the staff that currently work there care a lot. We are always working with our students, responding to their big emotions and giving them tools and strategies to deal with them, helping them navigate difficult peer interactions, having restorative conversations, providing skill-based small groups and check-ins, and providing therapy options, including our own in-school therapy option to families. Our support team has worked hard together to implement these interventions, and I'm happy to provide data in which students made significant progress. Candace and Annabelle are always striving to improve the way we support our students' mental health and behavior and are very active in our weekly student wellness. Candace has even created her own standards based on trust, respect, excellence, care, and knowledge, and we hold monthly restorative circles with entire grade levels to build community. I have personally witnessed Candace and Annabelle's commitment to these school-wide and district standards in their leadership of these circles and in their direct behavior response with individual students. They have many positive relationships with students and staff at our school, and we should have been given the opportunity to voice our feelings and experiences prior to this investigation going public and before the decision was made to remove them.
Excuse me.
This is my last paragraph.
Okay. We're already 1 minute over the 3 minutes. Can
I just
maybe
the last?
close it up in a sentence?
These interventions are not perfect, but these children have always been loved and they continue to be loved. Candace and Annabelle love them and they provide a great deal of value to our school community at Southside, and they deserve to continue fulfilling their vision of joyful learning and high expectations and continue to improve outcomes for our students. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, thank you to all of our speakers. We also have somebody who did not wish to speak, who wanted to, from representing Madison East BSU, that, and the comments are that they'd like to see more respect for the Black Student Union staff from Madison East High School in regards to approving their mission request, and please use your influence in their favor. All right, thank you all to our speakers. We do appreciate you coming out and sharing with us. We're gonna now move through our agenda, starting with the approval of the minutes. I move that the Board of Education approve the minutes from the regular meeting dated September 30th, 2024.
Second, Maya.
Any corrections or comments on the minutes from September 30th? All right, hearing and seeing none. Megan, your advisory vote? All those in favor? All right, I think that's 6 of us. All right, we'll move on to the board president's announcements and reports. First, we'll start with a couple of proclamation. I'll have board member Vandermeulen start with the DPI proclamation about Gifted Education Month.
proclamation by the State Superintendent of Public Instruction, Gifted Education Month. Whereas we are all responsible for the future we collectively create. All students with intellectual, academic, creative, leadership, and artistic gifts and talents must be appropriately identified, instructed, and supported so that they can emerge as leaders who have co-created an environment that enables them and all their people to thrive. And whereas, just as giftedness comes in a variety of domains, it has no limits related to age, race, ethnicity, or national origin, economic status, sex, gender identity, or gender expression, sexual orientation, religion, multilingualism, or ability. And whereas collaboration between students, families, school district staff, organizations, community members, and nations serves as the critical foundation for supporting and engaging each and every learner. And whereas the Wisconsin Association for Talented and Gifted 2023 conference theme of Imagine, Innovate, Inspire is both ambitious and attainable. All three I's are renewable resources that must be consistently uplifted each day, month, and year in service of all learners in our schools. And whereas the Wisconsin Department of Public Instruction joined the leadership of the Wisconsin Association for Talented and Gifted Badger Pre-College, the Wisconsin Association of School District Administrators, the Wisconsin Association of School Boards, the Association of Wisconsin School Administrators, the Wisconsin Association for Supervision and Curriculum Development, and the Cooperative Educational Service Agencies as we work together to support Wisconsin's children with their gifts and talents. Therefore, I, speaking for Jill K. Underly, State Superintendent of Public Instruction, declare this month of October as Gifted Education Month. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. We have another proclamation, and Board Member Simkin, you'll read that one on Parental Involvement Day. Thank you.
Sorry.
Okay, next.
Did I move?
Whereas research indicates a strong correlation between student achievement and family engagement. Whereas National Parent Involvement Day is observed in Wisconsin on the third Thursday in November to celebrate the recruitment, engagement, and recognition of the contributions of dedicated school volunteers and families taking an active role in their child's education. Now, therefore, the Madison Metropolitan School District Board of Education recognizes all the ways parents, guardians, and other family members are involved in their child's education. Be it resolved, this statement be permanently imprinted in the Board of Education minutes for the meeting of October 28th, 2024.
Thank you, Board Member Simkin. All right, celebrating our schools, we are pleased to announce that 3 of our high schools, East, Bell Phillips Memorial, and West, have been recognized by the Wisconsin Advanced Placement Advisory Council with AP Pacesetter Awards for the 2023-24 school year. Memorial and West achieved Level 2 designation, meaning that 20% or more of all students participated in at least one AP exam, with 65% or more earning a score of 3 or above. This marks the second consecutive year that both Bell Phillips Memorial and West received a Level 2 distinction. East earned a Level 3 designation, meaning that 10% or more of all students participated in at least one AP exam, with 60% or more earning a score of 3 or above. Nice.
Okay, celebrating our students. Our high schools have some amazing theater performances coming up. The Board of Education is proud of our scholars for their efforts to create these outstanding productions. We invite our community to visit our high schools and attend these shows. More details, including ticketing information, are posted on the MMSD website. At East High Schools, 46 Plays for 46 Presidents performance on December 12th, 13th, and 14th.
La Follette High School, She Kills Monsters. Performances on November 8th, 9th, and 10th. Memorial High School, Lend Me a Tenor. Performances on November 8th and 9th. And then West High School, The Importance of Being Earnest. Performances on November 8th, 9th, 15th, and 16th. So make sure you guys go get your tickets.
Thank you. That concludes all of our announcements. Dr. Gothard, on to you.
Well, thank you very much, President Nichols, members of the board, community. First, let me start with Mr. Moe, our instructional resource teacher for social studies, was here with many of our student senate tonight. So thank you all for coming to a board meeting on a Monday night. I know it's very exciting, but it was nice to also spend some time with you earlier or last week as well. So thank you for being here tonight. A few updates for this meeting. First, referendum and community engagement. Here's just a list of some of the groups that myself and members of our team have been meeting with. On October 1st, we had the Partners for Progress Breakfast, which seems like a year ago already, and that was just earlier this month. At La Follette High School, the foundation sponsored that and had a really great turnout of getting people excited about public schools and especially MMSD as we go into our referendum. We also met with the Latino Consortium, the Westside Optimists. Many of you are on the bus tour of district facilities, longest I've spent on a yellow bus in some time. And I think we had a really informative visit. And it was great to interact with 10 different staff on the day as well. So really well done by all who organized that, and thank you. We had a Wisconsin Policy Forum panel that the Downtown Madison Inc. sponsored along with Mayor Rhodes Conway. Met with the Kiwanis, had a coffee with the superintendent, me, engaged with Student Senate, as I mentioned, and then had another Downtown Madison Incorporated presentation. More than 100 business leaders from around the community were present last week, and some really excellent feedback. In fact, just one thing I'll point out about that, you know, the video that we've been sharing in the referendum, correct? Board members, the 3-minute, 42-second. I showed that at that meeting, and I asked the group in there, and mind you, this is a group of folks who many are MMSD grads or have children or had children or have grandchildren in the district. And I asked them, how many of you learned something new or saw something the first time in this video? And 3/4 of the room raised a hand. So it told me the importance of engagement so that people truly understand what we are faced with as public schools in Wisconsin. Also last week, joined more than 300 students to celebrate Lights On After School. A highlight of that event, by the way, which is celebrating after-school programming out of school time. MSCR and the neighborhood centers put on a great parade on Northport. I have never seen children so happy to do this and get trucks to honk at them. It was quite amazing. And again, it just showed me the true joy that our children have when we build community. It really was incredible. Was also joined by the Lieutenant Governor there and other elected officials, and it was just a great time of advocacy for out of school time. Our board met tonight for an information session. Again, before the board meeting, our staff met for an information session. Thank you to staff that were present for that. And I know we have an upcoming Fitchburg engagement as well. More than 1,200 surveys have been completed between September 18th and October 21st. So they continue to come in, and you can find that information on our website. QR codes are everywhere. We still want your feedback and engagement. A highlight that many in our community go unaware of, but really important to us for a number of reasons, to all of us really, for the health of our community, are vaccine clinics. In 2024, we've had 6 of those clinics. 1,087 people have been vaccinated. 52% are 12 and older. A total of 3,383 vaccines. 70% of vaccines were school required. 86% are people who identify as a person of color, 55% Hispanic. The average is greater than 3 immunizations per person. Makes for some tender shoulders, I can imagine. At the clinic on October 19th at the Holtzman Learning Center, it was the largest school-based clinic to date. Staff vaccinated 330 people and provided 933 total vaccines in 4 hours. Again, people who identify as people of color represented 84% of those we served. 80% low income, which is defined as having no insurance or being on Badger Care. So just job well done by so many who come together to do that, and really appreciate the effort. And of course, we want all of our children to meet the state requirements and to be in school, having their vaccines accounted for. So thank you again. A couple more. One, we have a strategic framework. There's an RFP tonight that we'll be talking about, or that will be approved or presented to you for your approval. We want alignment and direction moving forward. We've heard too many times that we want to be able to make sure that we're aligning our resources with our actions, and that we can demonstrate accountability to our community, our students, our staff, our families, our greater community. And this is one way for us to truly engage with our community. We've been doing a ton of engagement. Now is the time for us to make sure that our efforts, our strategic efforts, match our resources, and that we're able to create a path moving forward, so we can make sure that everyone knows exactly what are the outcomes that we're all striving for in MMSD. So again, this is an important step that will take place later this winter into the spring for us to chart a new path moving forward. And then lastly, the science research collaboration with students, the 28th annual high school research internship poster session. Incredible what's happening throughout our school district around science. Over the summer, 27 MMSD high school seniors participated in this high school science research internship program on UW's campus. The program is supported through a partnership between the school district and UW-Madison. Students in the program are partnered with researchers at UW-Madison for an authentic science research experience for 10 weeks. At the end of September, students presented their findings at the UW through poster presentations in a gallery format, as you see in the photo on this slide. Students answered questions about their work and talked about their projects, and these projects covered a variety of scientific exploration, including, now think about this, you can all imagine science fairs that you've been to, but let's take it up a few notches. How about these for 4 topics, or 3? Cancer, one, identifying the cell types of a human thymus using single-cell RNA sequencing. Climate change, characterizing extreme participation events in Wisconsin. And athletes and injuries, associating preseason vertical jump and balance testing with injury development among Division I hockey and soccer athletes. I mean, these are relevant, timely, and highly interest-based research topics that I feel really fortunate that our students get a chance to explore in an area that they're passionate about, and have such excellent role models and support around them to do that. I'd like to commend our students for committing to these robust learning experiences over the summer, and then sharing what they discovered this fall. And with that, President Nichols and members of the board, my report is concluded.
Thank you so much. I like hearing about those poster research titles. Right? All right, well, let's work our way on through our agenda. Next, we're going to have a report on items that proceeded through the instruction work group held on October 7th, 2024, and I will turn that over to Chair Muldrow of the instruction work group.
Thank you, Board President Nichols. On October 7th, 2024, we talked about advanced coursework and early college, work-based learning, and co-curriculars. We were able to celebrate successes of the district and dive into deepening this work long-term, as well as examine this work through an equity lens. I'd like to thank the team and Cindy Green for the presentation they gave us that evening. We will have our next meeting next week on November 4th. And we will focus on the areas of literacy and mathematics, as well as talk about our Badger Rock charter renewal process for our instrumentality charter.
Thank you. Next, we'll report on item proceeded through the operations work group held on October 14th, 2024, and I'll turn that over to Chair Castro of the operations work group.
Thank you, Chair Nichols. On October 14th, we reviewed a HR update, things like number of vacancies across the district. We got the third Friday September count, reviewed the 2 budgets, which we will be discussing and voting on here tonight. Finally, we got a referenda and facilities planning update. Our next meeting is slated for November 11th, 2024, where we will commence the 25-26 development of the budget. We'll talk about an update with the cost of healthcare and insurance. And then we will have a facilities planning update and take a look at 3 policies we want to advise or revise. Thank you.
Thank you. We had no action items that proceeded through the instruction work group, and so we do have action items that proceeded from the operations work group, which is our budget. So we're first going to vote on the board's base or non-passage of the operational referendum budget. This budget would be in place should the current operational referendum on the November 5th ballot not pass. So the first 2 motions will be about that, and then we'll move forward with another set of motions. I move that the board approve and adopt the 2024-2025 budget as presented in the 2024-2025 fall budget book non-passage of the operational referendum for the October 28th, 2024 regular meeting in the following amounts. Total revenue for all funds, net of interfund transfers, $552,732,282. Total expenditures for all funds, net of interfund transfers, $601,818,272.
Second, Maya.
Any discussion or questions on this first motion? Yes.
I think this is an excellent budget. I had this discussion and have had this discussion probably every year with the board. And I'm thrilled that we can do a lot with the non-passing referendum. But I can't vote for a budget that doesn't have full COLA, even though we have an agreement with MTI. And as much as I want it to pass, and I obviously want the referendum to pass, I just can't vote on this portion. Thank you. I can't vote in the affirmative on this portion. Thank you.
Okay. Any other? Thank you, Board Member Vandermeulen. Any other comments? Yes, Board Member Muldrow.
I want to thank our administration for all the work that goes into preparing 2 budgets. I think it's a pretty tremendous effort to create a passing and non-passing budget. And I also want to acknowledge that both of these budgets represent a very sincere commitment to equity within the district and to stability. And I think that that can create a bit of confusion in terms of what is the difference between our passing budget and our non-passing budget. I want to thank Board Member Vandermeulen for highlighting that one of the differences is our ability to invest in staff compensation. I'm curious, Dr. Gothard or our administrative team, if any of you would like to highlight what makes the non-passing budget significantly different than the passing budget.
I'll ask Assistant Superintendent Stolner to join as well. President Nichols, Board Member Muldrow, you're right. 2 really difficult budgets for this reason. I know that Bob will probably say this as well. MMSD is operating in a structural deficit on our budget, meaning that we are spending more revenue than we have to spend. And therefore, we are going to be spending one-time funds, both with a passing budget or with a passage referendum and a non-passage referendum. Those amounts differ, and I'll have Bob go into the exact numbers. But we have a lot of work to do. Regardless of the outcome next Tuesday, we have to have some strategic direction moving forward that is going to guide our resource allocation and to ensure that we're spending every one of those dollars in the best way possible to create the best outcomes for students and our staff. And here's the big and, they need to be sustainable. And we know that we can't do that alone. We also know that our taxpayers shouldn't have to do that alone. The fact that 90% of our available revenue comes from property taxpayers is abysmal when you look at states around the country and how education is funded. So we have work to do. There's no doubt about this. It's frustrating to have 2 budgets and to have them dependent on a referendum and to have both of them still be a structural deficit. I'm committed to do this work. That's why I'm here and working with all of you and with our community. And I want to thank Bob and his team for the great work they've done in providing us very clear information for our path forward.
Thank you. Definitely a team effort. A lot of people have a hand in the budget, including the board and the administration. The big difference between the two budgets have already been highlighted. Both budgets are balanced. Both budgets get the board and the community through the 24-25 school year. Dr. Gothard mentioned, regardless of the passage or non-passage of the operating referendum, we have a lot of work to do in 25-26. We have ongoing expenditures that exceed revenues under both scenarios. The first budget, in terms of non-passage, relies on $45.7 million in one-time funds to balance the 24-25 budget. The budget still remains within the board's policy of a projected ending fund balance on June 30th, 2025, between the 10 and 15% range. Just under 13% would be in terms of the first budget. The second budget, in terms of passage of the operating referendum, still relies on one-time funds. In addition to relying on one-time funds, it would provide our employees with an additional 2.06% retroactive raise to July 1, 2024. That would be in addition to the current 2.06% raise that's in the budget of non-passage. Let me be clear, the passage budget still relies on $22.4 million in one-time funds. Again, the ask of the community is to allow the board, the school community, to expand its existing revenue over a period of 4 years for a total of $100 million. So it's 30 million this year, 30 million the following fall, followed by 20 million and 20 million. I can't stress enough, this gives the authority to increase the revenue limit picture. We've projected as if the funds would be entirely on property taxes, which we need to. Our hope is the state legislature will provide additional funds so we can move away from that district that's 90% reliant on the property tax and hopefully get additional state aids. But those are the two major differences in terms of the two budgets. It really gives the board and the community an opportunity, a chance to get through 24-25 and then begin the strategic process for 25-26 and moving forward.
Thank you so much for speaking to that. In terms of levying the tax related to both budgets, is there any unanticipated revenue that we have become recently aware of in terms of TID closure or contribution by the state that may allow for us to, whether this referendum passes or not, alleviate some of the burden on local taxpayers?
Yes, good point. Revenue limits is all about a combination of state general school aids. You take that away from your maximum revenue limit and you get the maximum ability to raise property taxes. Madison is receiving an unprecedented level of state aids this year, $61 million to be exact. Last year was about $38 million, $23 million increase this year. One of the positives of that, in addition to having $61 million in state aid, which buys down the property tax increase, we're guaranteed under current law to receive 85% of that $61 million moving forward. And so even if the legislature doesn't provide any additional aid through the next state budget process, we're guaranteed a level of state aid higher than what we would have seen in the last few years because of that, what's called the hold harmless provision, guaranteeing us at least 85% of the aid received this year. That's positive for taxpayers. It means less property taxes, more state aid.
Thank you so much for speaking to that.
Board Member Simkin.
Okay, Bob, while you're up here, we are giving the taxpayers of Madison a choice with this referendum. And I think that we're getting to the point where there's some people who are hearing some of these terms for the very first time. And so I'd like to give you a chance to explain. You talked about using one-time funds and you talked about fund balance. Can you explain that as if we haven't heard about that before?
Sure. I'll talk about the one-time fund balance. So what's been happening in the Madison community, the budgets that have been approved the last 3 years, including this year, 3 years, are structural deficits. In other words, our ongoing expenditures are pretty much at the rate of inflation, but our ongoing revenues have not kept up with the rate of inflation. The state has not, in my opinion, met their commitment to share locally in the cost of public schools. The only good story about that is the board has a sufficient fund balance to be able to balance the budgets each year. It's just, we're at a point in terms of the 24-25 budget that if we do not get sustainable revenues, we are not going to continue to have sufficient fund balance to support those ongoing expenditures. The fund balance is just a calculation, a projection on each June 30th of our unassigned fund balance as a percent of our expenditures. The board policy says you must maintain an unassigned fund balance between 10 and 15% of your Fund 10 expenditures. It's a bit of a rainy day fund, people refer to it as, but it's just a calculation, right? It doesn't mean we have that amount of money in a savings account, but it does mean it's the balance in the fund projected. And so the budget that doesn't pass, the non-passage again, is about just under 13%, right in between that 10 and 15% range. So that's what it is. The point though to take away from the conversation is we don't have sufficient fund balance or one-time revenues to go into 25, 26 and do what we've done the last 3 years. We just do not have the base revenues to maintain the level of expenditures and continued investment in four-year-old kindergarten and early literacy and dual language immersion. Just do not have the revenues ongoing.
All right. So we have the motion with the total revenue and total expenditures. It's already been seconded. We've had comments and discussion. Megan, your advisory vote. All right, all those in favor? Those opposed? All right, motion passes. Thank you. 6-1. All right, the second motion, I further move that the board certify the 2024-2025 all funds tax levy in conjunction with the 2024-2025 budget in the total tax levy amount of $367,350,841, which consists of the following specific subcomponents. Fund 10, General Fund, $324,769,454. Fund 39, Referendum Approved Debt Service, $19,611,638. Fund 41, Capital Expansion Fund, $5 million. Fund 80, Community Services Fund, $17,969,749 for a total tax levy of $367,350,841.
Second, Maya Pearson.
Is this for the non?
This is still on.
Just wanted to make sure.
All right, this is still part of the non-passing. Any comments or questions on the second part, on this second motion? Okay. Megan, your advisory vote? All right. All those in favor? Aye. No, sorry. And then those opposed? All right, thank you. That passes. Okay, now we'll make a contingency motion such that if the November 5th operational referendum passes, the following motions would approve submitting the following scenario to local and state agencies as our final budget and final tax levy. So first motion, and there's two of them. I move that the board approve and adopt the 2024-2025 budget contingent on passage of the November 5th operational referendum as presented in the 2024-2025 fall budget book passage of the operational referendum for the October 28th, 2024 regular meeting in the following amounts. Total revenue for all funds, net of interfund transfers, $583,111,706. Total expenditures for all funds, net of interfund transfers, $608,824,795.
Second, Maya Pearson.
All right, any questions or comments on this motion? Board Member Vandermeulen.
We heard in public comments today, and although I've spoken on the issue at 4 referendum sessions, Bob, can you again explain why we are not closing schools, or why it would be just as expensive to bus students?
Sure. Every year, the board looks at our schools and the utilization rate of the schools, and makes a decision based on available space, based on student attendance areas. I always stress with folks, it's real important to know if a school is not being used in terms of its rated capacity, we only staff the buildings to meet the needs of the students that are attending the schools. And so we don't staff teachers unless there are kids to be taught per the board policy in terms of class sizes. Transportation is very expensive. Madison has always been an inclusive school community and a neighborhood school community, which is why we have 52 school buildings. But we do look at the cost, and we will continue to look at the cost as our enrollment changes. I'd like to point out we're in the second year in a row of increasing FTE, even though long-term enrollment projections have us losing students 500 to 600 a year. We're in the second year of an increase. 125 FTE for the purposes of my counts, which is revenue limits and state aid, which is very positive. But the budget meets those needs, and the board will continue to look at it as we go to 25, 26.
President Nichols and Board Member Vandermeulen, I'd like to add the following as well. I've been through school closings before, and one of the things that we need to think about is why would we consider consolidating schools? Do we have a plan for providing a well-rounded education that is going to be far better if we're able to do with greater economies of scale at a particular school? Are we going to save? Are we going to be in a better position to invest more dollars in our schools? What is the amount that we are going to have to subsidize if we keep lower enrolled schools open? Are we going to, in fact, possibly take a school from a neighborhood that it might be their only community gathering place? Might we, remove a school from our portfolio that doesn't have adequate transportation anywhere else in the city? I mean, these are all questions when we think about, we think about consolidating or closing schools. This is a long-range plan type decision. This is not one right now in a place where we've stabilized, we've even increased our enrollment, our FTE, where we would need to do it out of emergency because of such great declines in enrollment. And for right now, I'm convinced that we would not save and have efficiencies in the manner that some may think, that it's just a matter of you have too many schools. That isn't the case for us. In the future, if it is part of our future based on the trends that we're seeing, it would be a long-range conversation that I think we should engage with the community. But we are not at that place now. As it pertains to the facilities question, that's where these two kind of get overlapped sometimes too. I think we're safe to say that, remember, and Bob was very clear on this early on, we're focusing our facilities referendum on our middle schools because we know we are going to need regional middle schools. We just do. So those are centers where we're investing great dollars in terms of replacement schools. And, we're going to build really strongly around them. If there would be the case where we have too many elementary schools in the future, those would be decisions that we would have to make based on that. And there's a number of other ways as well that we could look at grade configurations. And Madison has done this over the years. It doesn't necessarily mean that we would have to close an entire campus. We also know, lastly, that Madison is expected to grow by 100,000, Dane County by 300,000, Greater Dane County 1 million by 2050. Now, I don't know what birth rates are going to look like. I mean, let's consider the last 4 years. We have no idea what trends are going to be in the future. But Madison right now is a place that people want to come to. And we need to continue to work as hard as we can, all of us, our community, to be a destination school district. This is a destination city and area, and all of us should be invested in making MMSD the very best school district it can be for all of our students and families who choose to live here.
I appreciate, may I answer, Chair? I appreciate your answer. I'm actually very for keeping schools open. I understand also what people, I think, and if I may say this, what people don't realize is when you have to factor in transportation, not all transportation works for individuals with disabilities. Certain buses cannot carry certain wheelchairs, and I think it would harm rather than help. So I'm really, really glad that we didn't do that and we chose to go this way. And I want to thank you for your work. I am definitely in support.
Board Member Mal.
I want to thank the team for all of your work in relationship to our greater community. You all have been all over our city hearing from our residents about what the impact of our referendums mean to folks personally. I am wondering if there are salient perspectives you all would like to share with us as a board in terms of what you are hearing from our community as it relates to any direction we should take related to the referendums, or any questions or critique of the referendums that the board may want to be aware of before we participate in this vote.
Thank you, President Nichols, Board Member Muldrow. I'll start with this. I thought about doing a little science experiment tonight. TJ was kind of laughing at me, but here is how it would work. I mean, right now, our current district revenues, we have a cup that's full of water and there's a lid on it. Meaning that if we get more water and pour it in, we don't get to collect that for revenue. That money, if we have excess money, like the additional state aid that we received, it spills out and it goes to reduce property taxes, which is great. But we can't collect any new spendable revenue for the work we're going to do. What we're asking our community for is two things. One, remove that lid. Number two, a larger glass. Because we want to pour more revenue into that so that we can sustain our effort, our work. And I think when we start to break down and have conversations with people, it becomes much more clear to them what revenue caps limits have done to state of Wisconsin public schools. Certainly started in a couple of the years before I left, but coming back, I'm just absolutely amazed that 120 districts all have their fate decided next Tuesday night. Very similar discussions. Some much worse. Just the scale that they have and the services that they would have to remove, far different story than, you know, a robust district like ours in a metropolitan area. And, you know, I think for us, Board Member Muldrow, this is a chance for us to stabilize our district, advocate for additional funding, and create space so that revenue cap, increasing our revenue cap, is a strategy, a tool for us. It doesn't mean we have to rely on that full authority. We will be back before you next year at this time, and there could be other factors that improve our budget outlook. Increased enrollment or stabilized enrollment. Bob mentioned additional state aid. Expenditures that we thought may come in less. We may have additional, you know, dollars with the passage of this where we may not need, you know, that entire tax revenue cap authority, limit authority. He also mentioned already the additional state aid. What that does is it's reduced already the first year on the average price home from $317 for that first year to $40 for that first year based on that additional state aid. Because again, that's not revenue we can spend, but it does go to our property taxpayers. So we will look, I will look, you have charged me to bring back to you a balanced budget, but also one that is the most equitable for our taxpayers. And we're all committed to doing this work.
Thank you so much for speaking to that. I want to acknowledge that I think this board has put a tremendous amount of thought into what this means in the lives of everyday people across our community, and what this means in terms of the integrity of our services and our ability to provide quality education for our young people. I think, part of the tragedy conversation we're having in the context of Wisconsin is that Wisconsin as a state spends more on incarceration than anything else, including education. We live in a community where it is so much easier to spend a few $100 million on a jail than to build a school. And I think there's a tremendous amount of work we need to do as a community to reconcile that. And I think that part of what's on our ballot is self-determination, is making the kinds of schools here in Madison that we want for our young people and we want for our educators. And I'm tremendously grateful to the team and to you, Dr. Gothard, for your leadership in championing the work. I'm very proud to get to vote in favor of the passing referendum budget this evening. That's it for me.
Any other comments or questions? Board Member Castro?
Yeah, thank you. I just want to commend all of us for navigating a uncertain and adverse budget environment, like we always do, but particularly this one with the complexity involved. I think that we were also very responsive in listening to the needs of the community when it came to investing more in community schools, which we did this time around, or when it comes to salary compression. I thought that we were very responsive to the needs of the community and thinking on our feet and making these changes mid-budget. I also want to commend us for staying steadfast and keeping all the resources as possible in front of our kids and teachers, and staying within the fund balance which we set out. And should these things not pass, we'd have to obviously adjust. But I think that we've held the line to do no harm with this budget, and I think the two visions are compelling for the voters in Madison. So thank you.
Board Member Mosner?
Thanks. I have one comment. Well, two. The first is thank you to the administrative team and to the board and to the broader community who's been a part of input in developing this. A bunch of you have heard this story about when I was super politically despairing in 2020, and my husband gave me a really, really excellent pep talk about the importance of focusing on local change. It was really transformational for me. I mean, you would think maybe I would have known that already, but it was, I needed to hear it at that time. And I'm thinking about, to your point, Board Member Muldrow, what do we do as a community when things are uncertain broadly? We look around at the national political scene or the international geopolitical scene, and I know some of us feel powerless or afraid. And the moment that we have here in our city now to put our resources directly towards our local schools, I think really speaks to the power of investing in local strength, because there are children, because we can control it. We can manage it here locally, and because when the outside world, when the national scene is scary or crumbling, what gets communities through that is what we do together. And so I want to remind voters that while there are, of course, essential pocketbook considerations, there are also ideological considerations when you're making this choice. And I didn't want to not say that. I think that's all that I have. Thank you.
Board Member Simkin?
This is a big thing, so I think I'm gonna chime in too. When I came on the board, I came in thinking I'm gonna help figure out how to balance the budget. And that first year, I spent weeks sitting with that budget book thinking, I'm going to figure out where to cut so that it all makes sense, right? So that it all balances. And I came back with amendments. And then as we started to talk about each of the amendments, that's when I started to discover how every way that we had been spending money, what looked to me like extra, was actually something that was really tied into supporting our students. And you couldn't necessarily see it in where the line item was in the budget. But by the time I was done with that process, everything that I had thought, oh, this must be extra, was really focused on how do we do the best for our kids? How do we make sure that we are giving them what they need in so many different ways? And then the second year I thought, okay, well, I'm going to try this again. I understand it better. And I didn't spend weeks on it. I spent a few days on it. And I thought, yeah, we have, as a community, as a district, we've already done the cutting that can happen. Like, it's happened for now over a decade, where we have just gone through and we have cut this budget, and all that's left is the things that we really need to make sure that we are lifting our students up and that we're trying to provide the support that every student needs to come to school ready to learn because their basic needs have been met. And that once they're in school, there's the support that they need to be able to stay in class and to be able to learn. And I think that there's still a lot more that we can do, but there's nothing less that we can do. I don't think that there's anything that we can cut. And so what I think that we have before us as a community is a choice. We can choose to say that we're in a pretty horrible situation as far as state funding, but we can control what we can do in Madison. And for those of us with tight personal budgets, it's a hard choice, right? We're asking a lot of our community, and I'm really glad that we are giving our community a chance to make the decision, to support what our students need, to be able to be surrounded by the education and the supports so that they can be learners in our community. And so I am really proud that we are asking for what we need, for what our students need to move forward.
All right, so we have a motion if the referendum passes on November 5th, and you've heard the amounts for total revenue and total expenditures. Megan, your advisory vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, that passes 7. All right, the second part of the motion is I further move that the board certify the 2024-2025 all funds tax levy contingent on passage of the November 5th operational referendum in conjunction with the 2024-2025 budget in the total tax levy amount of $397,550,416, which consists of the following specific subcomponent. Fund 10 General Fund, $354,769,454. Fund 39 Referendum Approved Debt Service, $19,611,638. Fund 41 Capital Expansion Fund, $5 million. Fund 80 Community Service Fund, $18,169,324, for a total tax levy of $397,550,416.
Second,
All right, any questions or comments on the second motion? All right, Board Member Mosner.
Just really, and this is, also applies to motion 2A. Public schools are really cool. It's really, really cool that we pool our resources in our community to take care of the children who live here. I tell my personal children all the time, hey, do you know that anybody who lives in our neighborhood can go to your school? That it's here for everybody, and I don't want myself to forget, or us to forget, or people who are listening to forget that public schools are really cool and beautiful. And it's wonderful that we're in a position here to do this for all the children. in our communities.
I don't know. Bob, I think we're good, right? Did we just vote on the second one? Oh, I'm sorry.
Second.
Okay, and no wonder y'all were looking at me like, what? What are you doing? All right. Thank you for the comment. Any other comment or questions on the second motion? All right, hearing none. Megan, your advisory vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
All right, thank you.
Aye.
Give me one. Oh,
Granted.
all right, we are now into our consent agenda. I move that the Board of Education adopt and approve all of the motions set forth in Section 10 of the electronic agenda prepared for the October 28th, 2024 regular school board meeting exactly as said motions are written. By voting affirmatively on this motion, a board member expresses his, her, or their affirmative vote on each of the motions consolidated hereby subject to any express separations that have been made by any member of the school board.
Second, Nikki Vandermeer.
Thank you. Are there any separations? Board Member Mosner Feltham.
10.9.
10.9, thank you. Any others? All right. Then Megan, your advisory vote. Thank you. All those in favor? Aye. So,
Aye.
1, 2, 3, 4. All right, thank you. That passes. All right, let me go down to 10.9. 10.9. All right, let me read the motion. I move that the Board of Education contract with Research Triangle Institute, RTI, for up to $150,000 for the strategic framework planning during the 2024-2025 with funding from the fiscal year 2025 superintendent's personal services, professional, tech, official budget.
Second, Maya.
Okay, Board Member Mosner Feltham?
Thanks. I wanted to separate this one because I wanted to, heard a lot of like, to your point, let's make these cuts, let's make these changes. And we've heard Dr. Gothard, you talk a lot about the importance of prioritizing in MMSD. And I wanted to make one point and then just give you an opportunity to talk about what you hope happens out of this. And the point is, like you, Laura, I felt like, oh, there's so much obvious cuts to be made right from inside the school district. Like, what is this? What is this? They color printed that, and like, like it seems one way, and it's not that way actually. And where it is that way, there's a lot that can go wrong when you're just like, get rid of that and get rid of that. That should all be fine. When you rush into those types of decisions, the damage that can be done to our school community, our communities of learners, to our staff communities is, I don't want people to think that like in a search for efficiency and a search for fiscal responsibility that it's like so easy. And so I'm really excited about the process of strategic planning with you at the helm, Dr. Gothard. And I wanted to take a moment to linger on that. That's my comment.
Great. Thank you, President Nichols, Board Member Mosner Beltham. I think a few things. My role in strategic planning is, hand on the wheel, guiding the ship, so to speak, and making sure that the board and the community are informed with decisions that we're making or considering. I asked Dr. McCray probably 3-4 months ago to prepare for an RFP so that we could continue doing some strategic planning. Specifically, one of the areas that we will focus on is resource allocation and resource management, making sure that the money we do spend is achieving the results that we want and being able to show that to the board and to the community as well. One of the activities that we're going to have to go through, whether it happens in the next 12 months or 18 months or 24 months, is what are we going to start, what are we going to stop, and what are we going to sustain? That's how we have to look at budgeting and allocation or resource allocation moving forward. And first we have to know, we have to take a great catalog of everything that we're doing and understanding, is this making the impact that we wanted to or that we thought it was? And from there really begin a process of narrowing our field unless, the sustainable revenues that we've been talking about change dramatically. So we're going to have to do more with less. That's just the reality of who we are. And this process should help us, get on that track, but also a way that we can involve the community as well. I'll turn it over to Dr. McCray to just frame the RFP.
Yeah,
and
we
share kind of what it is, what our next steps might be, Dr. McCray.
so truly excited to, first of all, good evening. But truly excited to start this work at the same time. We will begin to work with the organization to do a number of different things. The first thing is that we are doing a data analysis of what we already have because we received a lot of feedback already from our community to then determine what are our next steps when it comes to community engagement. We're also going to be doing some work with the board members to really look at helping us to identify what our priorities are for the district, what are our student outcomes first, so that we as administration can begin to think about how we get. So I think I'm really more excited is that we will be able to have one document to be our North Star to really help us hone in on identifying what our priorities are.
It's just a really, really quick question. When was the last time we had a strategic framework presented to the board in the process? Just so that people kind of understand just the life cycle, and when the last one was and where we've been kind of like making decisions on.
2018.
So 2018, and it's usually like a shelf life of like 5, 6-ish years, depending on who comes in and transit. Yeah.
But I also think, like we had the pandemic, then we had the recalibration, then we had an interim. And so there's been some things that kind of start and stop. And so that's why we really want to make sure like we're thinking about what we've already done to really move the work forward before we just start. So we're not starting from scratch. And I think that's important. We're starting from recognize we've already done some of this work by revisiting that work first and then deciding where our next path is.
Yeah, thank you for that. I just was just mentioning that just so that the community also understands that process. And thank you, Blair, for your comments, because I do think it gives us the opportunity to think about in the moment and where we actually want to be. And I think it fits in with the work that we are going to be doing also as a board,
Yeah.
and trying to be a better board, being a better district, better admin, and really trying to center our children more intentionally. So thank you.
All right, any other questions or comments on this one? All right, Megan, your advisory vote? All those in favor? All right, that passes 7. All right, we have, thank you all for that. We don't have any other business items for this agenda, so we're gonna move down into other reports to the board. Starting with the City County Schools Collaborative Committee. I'll share out that we met on October 9th. And we had some discussion on possible recommendations that the committee might have wanted to provide relative to the city or county budgets. And then we also talked a little bit about topics moving forward for the committee, and we decided that we would move forward, bring that back at the November 6th meeting. All right, moving on to the Madison Schools Own Community Recreation Advisory Committee. Looks like no meeting. Okay, go ahead. Tonight, I apologize. Students.
Okay, so we met on October 9th and October 3rd. On the 9th, we gave students kind of a crash course in board docs before doing a scavenger hunt and transitioning into committees. And then on the 23rd, Dr. Gothard visited us for a roundtable discussion in which students were able to ask questions and kind of give some insights into what they would like to see from MMSD in the future. Our next meeting dates are November 6th and November 20th.
Thank you. Okay. Now we can go on to Madison School Community Recreation Advisory Committee.
You got it. Dr. Gothard already shared a little bit about MSCR After School's 25th annual Lights On After School event, highlighting the importance of high quality after school programs nationwide. 200 after school participants from Mendota, Lindbergh, Hawthorne, and Sandburg participated along with Dr. Gothard and Lieutenant Governor in the parade on Northport. So we got the honking. Also, MSCR is launching Friday Night Features, a series of unique programs and activities for different age groups. It's held the first Friday of the month at MSCR West. I personally just checked out that email. Adult baton twirling is already full, unfortunately.
Does that conclude your, okay. Okay, next we're gonna have a report from Dr. Evie about the Citizens Ad Hoc Committee to name Southside Elementary School.
Good evening, Board President Nichols, board members, Dr. Gothard, and the Madison community. Thank you for having me here to update you about the Southside renaming. The Citizens Ad Hoc Committee met for the first time on June 17th. There were some illnesses and scheduling obstacles for a few months, and the committee is now on track, and they met on October 14th. They did not achieve quorum at the October 14th meeting, and therefore they could not take any action, but the members were guided by Chairperson Mr. Greg Jones. They pushed forward with the agenda and held a good discussion on the approach to the proposals, guided by relevant research. They also took note of the public input via the website, which also helps inform the members as they continue to engage with the proposals. The committee will meet again tomorrow, Tuesday, October 29th, from 6 to 8 p.m. The meeting will be live streamed on YouTube and posted on the district's board meeting webpage.
Members have decided that the meetings will take place on a bi-weekly basis until they complete the task of making recommendations to the Board of Education. And I will update you again next month. Thank you.
Okay, no report. Thank you. No report for the policy committee and no report for board governance this month. Under other business, we do have a notice of disallowance. I move that the Board of Education disallow a claim on behalf of the MMSD under Wisconsin State Statute Section 893.80, alleging negligence in maintaining the sidewalks at Sherman Middle School on or around March 22nd, 2024. Thank you. All right, any clarifying questions? All right, Megan, your advisory vote? All those in favor? All right, that's 6 of us. Jesse, passes. All right, we have no other old or new business. Motion to adjourn, please.
So moved.
All right, Megan, your advisory vote? All those in favor of adjournment?
Aye.
All right. We are adjourned. Thank you.
Have a good night, everyone.